Well, thank you very much, and welcome to Luleå. I know many of you from before, so how many of you are from Sweden? Most of you. How many of you are from Norrbotten? Well, about half of you. Okay. Then for the rest of you, I know that you arrived yesterday and had a nice day, but welcome to Luleå, the biggest city in northern Sweden, but also a center of a green transition going on in this region. As I was introduced, my name is Carina Sammeli. I'm the mayor of Luleå since 4 years, basically. And when I started, I really didn't know anything about industries. I knew that we were a city of industries, but I didn't really understand how that would develop and how that would influence everything I do in my everyday life. So that is what I'm going to talk about a little bit. What is going on up in the north of Sweden, and how does that affect a municipality as ours and the whole society where we are in? Because we're in a situation when things are changing quite rapidly. Well, I'll start with this picture. The beautiful picture of Luleå. There's a little snow on the side, so it's basically in November a few years ago. We like the snow. It makes it very beautiful. We don't really like the wind that much, and Luleå is known to be a windy city. That's basically also because we are by the sea. I mean, we are a lake city close to the water, and that also makes it windy. But we're very, very proud of being a city close to the sea, and we're also very, very proud of our harbor, because that is one of the reasons why this city has been growing. But right now we are the place to be in a green transition. And I'm talking about a little bit what is going on. And it's about the fossil-free power. It is about the geopolitics, and it's about minerals. It's about a university with research and a knowledge to have industries for generations, and also a very, very safe and stable country. These things right now makes it interesting for parts of the world to make investments here, and also for the companies who are here to make new investments. So what about Luleå? We're a city of almost 80,000 inhabitants. For long, we have been a city where the railway coming down from the minefields up in the inlands are coming down here. We have a harbor, we have had industries, and that has been a lot of our DNA. We talked about ourselves as a steel city. And we've been here for 400 years. That's actually quite nice when you talk to companies and they're like, oh, we've been here for 60 years. And I'm like, well, we've been around for 402 years. So, and we plan to stay here for 400 years more. We are a city with a lot of people coming in, just as you are. We have a big part of the tourist industry, and it's growing. People coming in here to see the city. We're very, very fond of that. And for 50 years ago, we also had a university coming here. And for you who know something about Swedish development, you know that having a university makes a city grow. Because that is basically the only cities who are growing in Sweden. It's the cities who has a university or the cities close to a university. And that's because young people go to education in Sweden. Almost 50% of every generation goes to the university sooner or later right now. And when you are a city with a university, young people move in here. And we have a technical university. We're very, very proud of them. But they do attract a lot of men. You hear it. We're a city of steel and mining and things like that. And we have a technical university. So that's actually one of the challenges we've been working a lot with. How do we attract young women? Of course, in Sweden, a city is growing when young women moves in. And in Sweden also, the woman decides where the family lives. So that is actually one of our challenges. And then we're trying to work a lot with culture and with other values and make sure that we have a wide variety of jobs here, and then industries and companies, of course. You recognize her? Ursula von der Leyen, just starting her second period as president of the Commission. This is like 3 years ago now. She said that there are few places in the world so well placed for a green transition and with such good access to green electricity. And then she was talking about north of Sweden. And that is actually the world I'm living in. I think I've had 10 commissioners visiting me here in Luleå the past 4 years. I actually had the State Secretary of the United States coming here 1.5 years ago. We have people moving in or visiting us from all over the world to see what is going on here. And that makes me a little bit understand the scale of what is going on here. And what is going on? Well, this is a map. You don't really see it, but it's like the green, the yellowish is the map of northern Sweden. For you who are Swedish, then you would know that this is the electricity area number 1. Because that is actually what is driving the changes in Sweden and the investments. And right now we have about hundreds of billions euros being invested in this area. Why? Well, because we have a lot of electricity. In this area, we've had a surplus of electricity for about 70 years. And that's because of the hydropower, of course, that we built in the big rivers up in the north of Sweden. And then we transported the electricity through the grids down to the south of Sweden. And we have, for generations, had very, very cheap electricity in Sweden. And it's been renewable power and also very, very stable grids. So that's all very, very interesting in what's going on right now. And why is that? Well, because it's the climate change going on in the world. Most people know it. Most people actually want to make a change in their consumption to make sure that their fossil footprint is smaller than it was before. And when you do that, you have to actually stop doing something and start doing something else. For some, it's you buy something else, like when you buy a car. My car, when I bought it 10 years ago, it was a diesel car. I thought it was very, very new and efficient. Today, I would probably buy an electrical vehicle. And that means that when you're changing, consumers all over the world are changing from one product to another, then you have to need an industry to make these new products. You can't use the same old industries. So right now, you have a new industry growing up, making car batteries and car engines for the new industry. Other industries, they have a lot of pollution in their production. As I know, many of you visited the SSAB or Stegra yesterday and talked to the steel industries. And today, Luleå has about 7.8% of the Swedish carbon dioxide emission. And if I add the small city of Oxelösund, we are a little bit above 10% of the Swedish carbon dioxide emissions. Why is that? Well, we have a furnace burning coal every day to make steel. So, for the steel industry, it's not about you as a consumer wanting to buy something fossil-free. It will be very, very expensive for them to continue using fossil fuels and continue using coal because it will cost to make emissions. So, if they want to be in the market in the coming years, they need to do something else. And what is that something else? Well, it's going into electricity, going into green hydrogen, and use that instead of coal when you're making steel. So, then you need a lot of electricity. And that's when you're looking this way. And right now we're working not only with the steel industry and the car battery industry, but also in many other industries that also have big fossil footprints today. And when they want to lose their fossil footprint, they want to make sure that they can go into electricity. There's actually, like most countries in the world, have an electrification strategy. When they want to leave fossil fuels, they want to go into electricity. And even if you don't want to lose fossil fuels, you actually think that you need electricity because how many of you have heard about AI? Or you think about digitalization, automatization? Well, everyone who makes production actually thinks about that. And that means you want to be in a part where you can have a lot of electricity, cheap, and it has to come every minute when you need it, not like once in a while. And that means that what has been our big thing for 50, 60 years, having electricity production and a stable grid system, that is now like the star in the industries. That's what they are looking for. And then they come to our place. And of course, they want to have an industry here. And there's also one thing more in this picture. And actually, like what you're seeing, that's the electricity grid. Usually you take the railway or roads. This is the electricity production of the electricity grid. Coming down from the water, but also the past 10 years, we have the biggest land-based European windmill farm down in Piteå municipality, Marksbygdens. So we also have renewable energy coming out of the windmills. What do we also have in this picture? We have a lot of mines. Because every part of electrification actually needs minerals. I mean, we will continue needing steel, but we also need other minerals. We will need copper to make a grid. In my battery, even if it's a small phone or a car, you have what you call rare earth minerals. There are minerals that we didn't use that much like 15 years ago that we now need a lot of. And many of them we buy from China or from Russia or maybe from Congo or places where we don't really know the status of the people living there and the sustainability in their lives and their workplace. And maybe you don't want to be dependent upon China or Russia. Sweden actually have 3 countries we say we have not friendly relationships with. You know them? Russia, China, Iran. So if we want to make sure that we are independent of the ones who we are not friends with, then we need to make sure that we can have our own production. And for all parts of electrification and in all parts of a changing geopolitical world, we will need minerals. And where do we have minerals? Up in the north, close to the pools, and they are in this region. I am actually quite sure that we will have more mines in northern Sweden the coming years, and in northern Finland, and in northern Norway, because we need the minerals. And when I talk about this in Sweden, everyone asks me about the electricity. Then it's about the green transition, the energy transition, moving out of fossil fuels into something else. When I have my visits from the States or from other parts of the world, it's not the electricity, that's the bonus. Well, you're actually building this with green, that's like the bonus. They are talking about the minerals. They are talking about how we can make sure that the production of and every goods we need in the Western world will not be reliant upon China. That's what they are looking at. And when you realize that, then I understand that this change will probably go on. The mines and the minerals existing in this area, they will probably be brought up from the ground and they will probably be used somewhere because we need them. And I'm not hired for the companies, even if I talk about the companies a lot. I'm actually hired from the people living in Luleå. So my job is not to make sure that the companies are working out, even if I think this is good. I actually would love to be the one who ends like 7% of the Swedish carbon dioxide emission by helping to close down the furnace here. That would be a great thing to tell my grandkids in the future. Of course I want to be a part of that, and of course I want to be a part of a world where human beings can live in the future, and then we have to stop fossil fuels. But I also think that we have resources in this area. We have the minerals, we have electricity, we also have knowledge about how to use those. And I want the surplus being created when you use that to stay in this region, in my town or in our neighbor towns, to make sure that we who are affected by the water dams or the mines or the new industries or the new roads or the new windmills actually get something out of it. And that's my job. And that means I try to make sure that these investments come here and stay here, and to make it possible for them to actually be in this region for as long as possible. So that is what I do for a living. So I started up in the big world, and I wanted to tell you about it because that's what I see, and that's what makes me think that this is worth fighting for. Because I'm quite sure that this transition will move on. Maybe fast. We thought it would be faster 2 years ago, maybe slowing down, but it will continue. And we will have things in this region that the world needs. And then we need to make sure that the wealth is created here, because there's definitely conflicts in this. And when the conflict comes about who to use the land, or why you don't find anyone to be hired in the schools or things like that, they do not call any of these companies. They call me, or my colleague in Kiruna, or in the region, or Claes in Boden, who some of you met yesterday, and we have to handle the local conflicts. So I don't work with every company, but almost. I wanted to show you what we are doing, because we have many of the companies and investments here in our city. As I said, we've been an industry city for a long time. We have the harbor, and this is the part of the Luleå Industrial Park, or a picture of the Luleå Industrial Park, where we have about 9 billion euros being invested here in the coming 6 years. That's huge investments. And if you don't really get the scale of these sizes of investments, a German newspaper 2 years ago made a list of the biggest investments in Europe, known investments in Europe in the 2020s. And number 1 was Northvolt, number 3 was Stegra. And if SSAB's investment would have been known and decided, then they would be number 4. So that's the size. We are many of the biggest investments in Europe right now, making investments right here. In my area, I work with SSAB. They already have a steel mill, have had that for a long time here. We actually cooperate very, very closely with them. We have our electricity grid connected, or our district heating grid connected to their spare gas, actually. So we do cooperate very, very closely with them every day. And they are closing down the furnace and starting something else, and that is good news. They will continue make steel here, make sure that people can live here, have a job here, and have a good life here. And we probably also can have some heat out of them to make sure that our district heating system will work out in the future. And they will stay here using the minerals from this region here. We also have LKAB, the mining company. I think Jenny will come here later and talk about that, who already have their harbor here. About 1/3 of their production is coming down to Luleå and to the harbor and SSAB here. And they will also build an industrial park here, the REMAP project, and that's about rare earth minerals. So they will actually use their spare areas from the mining of steel and make sure to get the rare earth minerals out of there and make a lot of phosphor, but also mineral fertilizers. And that is also one of the other parts we have there. I don't actually have it in the picture, but we have the Spanish company Fertiberia who's coming here, and they want to do fossil-free fertilizers. And today, for you who do not know that, Sweden do not have any production of fertilizers. And that's not as good as we thought, because we bought them from Russia. And that meant that all of a sudden we stopped buying it from Russia, and then we had to find it somewhere else. And if you want to make sure that we can have food production in Sweden, and we definitely want that in an unsecure world, then we will need fertilizers. Today you use natural gas to make fertilizers. If you want to stop use that, what can you use? Maybe hydrogen. Maybe you want it green. Okay, where can you make green hydrogen? Northern Sweden. That's how they show up here. They have no connections to Luleå before, but they actually moved up here because they needed that. We have Talga, starting a mine up in Vittangi in Kiruna municipality, making anodes out of natural graphite for cars. Starting building their production. And we also have Uniper. That's a German-owned electricity company wanting to make electrofuels for shipping. The plan is to make sure that and that's made out of hydrogen. And then you get it why they want to be here. But they are actually planning to make sure that it's a green production of steel, but also a green transport to the end customer. So we are working with all of these companies, and I usually say that half my time I work with these issues. And then I have a little harbor there, and that's actually municipality owned, and that's a huge challenge because it's so expensive to build a new harbor. Even if it's good business, you have to when you build something, and then they hand you over the check and you need to pay it, and then you know that in 15 years this will be good business, but the first 5 years you just have to pay for your own costs of the loans. That's where we're going in right now, because our old harbor, they were actually doing one thing, coal in and iron ore out. And right now, LKAB will not be doing iron ore, they will do iron sponge. And we do not need any coal anymore. But we will have steel coils and the fertilizers and other things coming out. So we have to rebuild the whole harbor. And we're also a little bit too shallow, so we need a big dredging part to make sure that it's more, we can take bigger boats in actually. In this area, we have about I think we are at 12 different detailed plannings here right now. And when I started as mayor 4 years ago, we had 12 in the whole of Luleå. So right now we are doing this, and every one of them is more complex than any of the 12 before. So right now we are actually speeding up like 4 times as fast as we worked earlier. And we are not 4 times as many people doing it. We are the same amount of people doing the job, basically. So when you see that okay, this is really difficult and it's very complex and we need to do this and we need to do it faster than ever and we are not more people, then you have to start thinking about how you do things. Otherwise, we will have people leaving the office because they don't want to work with us anymore. And this is actually a really, really interesting project. So people want to do it, but it's difficult. So what we are saying is right now that we need to try new things of working. Our old ways of working would lead us in the wrong direction. That's actually a recipe of not succeeding, because then we will be too slow and we will do it in a way that it will not be sustainable for the people working here and the companies will not get what they need. So one of our work is actually to make sure that many of the ways people working in our organization can work in new ways. And that also means that I, as a mayor, has to back off a little bit. That's a challenge, especially when you have like 9 different political parties in the assembly and we all want to agree on things. And then we say we do not run through the details. We just need to we're going this way. The details, they have to be worked out from the people who work here and actually know something about it. That's not a way of working, because usually we were sitting and thinking, and then we made a plan about how to do it. And then like 3 years after we started the work, then we had the plan finished, and then we started doing. If we did a plan starting 3 years ago, none of this existed then. Like the pace of what is going on here is so fast right now, so we can't put time to make a plan. We just need to start doing at once, and we need to do it together with everyone else. And that is actually one of the solutions to many of our problems. Because when you're not enough people working, and you do not really know how to do it because you've never done it before, then you need to involve the people who do know something about this. And every time I talk about the problem on a stage like this or anywhere else, then someone shows up afterwards and like, oh, I heard you had a problem about this. Did you hear about the harbor in Rotterdam, how they solved this? Oh, did you hear about how they involved the local population in Fairbanks? Did you hear about, because there are knowledge out there. We are doing things in a new way, but we are not the only one doing things in the world. There are plenty of knowledge out there. We just need to get it in to our work. And that means that we have to be able to talk about what we are working with and talk about our problems before we solve them. And that is definitely not what politicians do in Sweden. We usually just talk about problem. Not everyone, but maybe. We usually talk about the problem when we know how to solve them. Because when you have an interview and say, oh, this is a problem, then the next question is what you want to do about that. And if you don't have an answer, then you're not a good leader, huh? So it is a challenge for us to say, we don't know. We're working on it. But that is actually the spirit we need right now. Because right now we have, you heard the beginning of my story. We know that we need to do this. It is good for Luleå, it's good for the region, it's good for the climate. And I don't know how to do it. I just know that we have to keep trying. Because if we don't keep trying, these companies can't be here. And many of the others in northern Sweden you saw on the last slide, they can't be here either, because they need a harbor. They need a Luleå that's working and existing. They need the university to work out. They need the city to work out. And when we don't know how to do it, then we just have to keep trying. And I usually say that maybe we can't succeed, but I don't want to take that decision. That will show up in the future. But I definitely invite every one of you to help us out if you have the opportunity. And as I said, half of my time I talk about this, and I'm talking too long, sorry. Half of my time I work with this very, very hard, like where is the pipe going? How do we invest in this harbor? Do we need a railway here? The other part of it is actually building a society. As I said, there are conflicts in this transition. And in a very, very fast transition, we have to, as I said, have fewer points that we aim at, but we need to have them in focus. And we are trying to talk about 4 points. We're trying to talk about we need to be 100,000 inhabitants for many reasons. We need to create 5,000 new jobs in different areas, not only in the industry. We are a little bit too focused on the industry as actually, so we are actively trying to work with culture and other industries, gaming industries and things like that, to make sure that we are a society where anyone can move in and have a good job and a good career. We want zero climate impact. That is also one of the parts. I don't really know how that will work out, but I know that I have to aim at it. Otherwise, we will not even steer in that direction. And we need to make sure that this good life people living here today will continue. A year ago, I actually got the award, the best city in Sweden to live in. We are 290 municipalities in Sweden, and the Luleå got #1 last year. Today we are #2, and the city of Umeå, a little bit south of here, is #1. They were #2 last year, so I plan to change it next year. But that is actually, we do know that we have a very, very good way of living here. You can have a quite good career, you can have a cheap house and a good education for your kids. We have good quality in the municipality services. So we do have everything, and we are a big city, so that we have culture and leisure, and you can go see hockey or basketball or theater tomorrow, and there will be a good night for you. So we are a city that is good, and we need to keep that. We need to focus on the people who are living here and make sure that they actually want to continue living here. And at the same time, we have to make sure that more people want to come in here and even in the future live here. And we will change for that, because we will need more people from more parts of the world. And I think I just stay there. So thank you for your attention. I actually forgot one thing I promised to talk about. Well, we have a few international, and I see Tim here. We have a few international priorities in our work, and we see that the focus is up on the north. So we are working a lot with the Arctic, and we're working a lot with our neighbor cities in the north. So we work very, very closely with Tromsø and Oulu and Bodø and Rovaniemi, cities in our sizes on the other sides, and they are actually our friends that we look at a lot, because you usually just read the newspaper in your country and you know what's going on in southern Sweden, but you don't know what's going on in Oulu, and it's about 2.5 hours away. And when you talk to them, you realize they are in the same business. And we also focus on the Arctic. So we're actually a part of the Arctic Must project, and Tim from Nordregio is also there. We actually went to Fairbanks together this summer, and that is actually a project about sustainability and how to grow sustainability and measure sustainability in the Arctic. And that helps us a lot, just to be able to travel and see other things, and also see cities where you are up in the north, in the Arctic, and you have the government down in the south, and they make decisions that's good for the country, and then they forget that we are cold and far away and not as many people and have big distances, and then you need to adapt everything, and we learn so much about looking at the other cities. So that's one of the I just wanted to mention it because it's a very, very good project.
You did right in doing so. Thank you so much for that, Carina. I think we're also impressed that actually you just did all of this off the cuff. There's no speaking,
no.
There's nothing on the prompter. I can show
you,
there's nothing here.
No.
But Carina, I want to ask you, how often do you wake up in the middle of the night and wonder, what if this is just a green bubble?
I don't think it's a green bubble. I am quite sure that none of the companies who I talked about will have the exact project that they are now talking about, because I followed them for 4 years, and it's changing. It's growing and getting slower, but that every one of the projects in northern Sweden using the minerals, making hydrogen here and using the electricity, that all of them will die. That is basically not possible in my way. So the different companies can change, but the transition of the industry and the needs of the resources here, they will exist in the future, and that makes it easier to think about. And then, as I said, I don't really know if we will succeed with everything, but I know that we have to keep trying, because otherwise we will definitely not succeed, and that is not an option for me. So I think about it a lot, and then also I have to make sure that we do not put the citizens in Luleå in a risk, and especially in an economical risk. So that is one of the things when we're looking at a new district heating grid or the harbor or building new schools and things, make sure that we do not grow too fast, so that if something happens, if the transition will be 5 years later, or maybe the industries will not be here, but in our neighbor cities, how can we make sure that will not makes us closing down school or elderly care in the municipality? So we have to work very, very close with the companies and make sure that they pay for what the market should pay for.
Right after this, the keynote we're going to have here is about how to involve everyone.
Yeah.
The difficulties of having a democratic process in the green transition. And I guess that difficulty must be on steroids when it's going this fast. How do you keep everybody involved?
We talk about that a lot, because as I said, there are conflicts and people will be affected. Right now in Luleå, we have the discussion about the people living on Sandön, on the other side of the water from the harbor. And when we're rebuilding the harbor, they will have too much noise, so they can't be there, or they will have to have big walls between their house and the water, and that's not what you want if you have a house on the island. So we have local conflicts, and we have to handle them all the time. What's important for me is to be very transparent about what we are doing and talk about it a lot. We do not believe in secrets. Every company who wants to buy land here, we make it official with them. We have to make an agreement that this is official, because I don't want to work with companies that I can't talk to the citizens here about us working with. That has to be obvious that we are doing that and what we are doing. So we talk about it a lot. We try to have a lot of information, but we also need to put the democratic processes in a permission. That is for the company with people. So they have to do the job. They have to talk a lot to people. They have to have information out. They have to be open to dialogue. And also you need to talk about, as I said, you have to talk about the problems before you solve them. Otherwise, you can't have the help of others. Everyone hates it when you go into a room and you just want to make sure that you agree with me. People get that when you get in there and oh, now I'm going to have a meeting and tell them why I am right. That's not a dialogue. So you have to actually, before I decided what I think we should do in the harbor or what we should do with the electrical grid, I have to talk to people so they can be in the process before it's too late, before we already made all the decisions. And that is a big, big challenge.
And that's a challenge that's also going to be addressed in one of the workshops that we're going to have after the coffee break. Some of us visited Boden yesterday, and you also mentioned Claes, your colleague there. Is this like a friendly competition to attract investments, or how do you cooperate? How do you compete?
Yeah, I would say it is. We're actually close friends, me and Claes, and that makes it easier, because we talk every week, and we often cooperate with, we are in the same transition. We are different sizes of cities, and we have different history. As I said, we're an industrial city. They are not. They used to be a defense city. So we have differences, but at the same time, we both see the challenges and the possibilities in this, and we are trying to solve them, and often solve them together, because people who are coming out from outer place here, they think it's the same thing. I mean, many people live in Boden and work here, and we will probably in the future have a lot of people living here working at Stegra. So we are an integrated area, and we need to cooperate. We are actually right now planning for a new city part in between our cities to make sure that it's easier to live here.
But don't you ever secretly call Stegra and say it would actually be better for you to be in Luleå?
Oh, did you see my map? I'm actually, they found a good location for them. Okay. So I'm actually very happy to work with them. I work with them, but also to work with the companies we have, and we don't really fit them in right now. So they are at a good location. And the good thing about municipalities, it's not like one will win and the other will lose. We will probably both go out as a winner, and that means that we learn a lot from Skellefteå also, and also Kiruna and Gällivare moving the cities and having their industrial transition and problems with competence and things like that. So we actually share a lot of knowledge and try to learn. So when Skellefteå is build housing first, that's important. So that's one of the things that when we started to understand what's going on, we need housing, otherwise people can't move in here. And they were because that's the only thing they said to us, start building before people move in, otherwise you will have huge problems. So we are learning from each other, and I'm very, very happy that the Boden is doing a great journey.
They are, and I'm thinking this must be the trickiest part of your equation, how much to do before you actually know what's going to happen and before you get the money.
Exactly. And then it's also about the risk I don't want to put in the lap of the citizens here.
Yeah.
What can we do that will not be a risk? And we have been growing for 30 years, so it's not like we will not need more housing in the future. We will need more housing. The biggest problem would be if the university closed down, then I would have problems. But we will probably continue growing. But we are trying to build everything a little bit bigger than we see that we need right now to make sure that we can grow into it. But yeah, it is a risk. And as the Swedish tax system works, we will get the money in like 5 years after someone moves in. So it's not that easy to like, well, they move in and then we get the money.
Some of us were not able to read your op-ed this morning, partially because I took it from the restaurant early on, and also partially because it's in Sweden. But you argue that Luleå has to be more inhabitants and has to reach, which you also point out here, 100,000 inhabitants. Why?
Well, many things. First of all, actually, that people are getting older. So it's not like, I usually say that to people, when everyone is staying their age, we don't need to be more people here. But they are not. People are actually getting older, and that means that we are not getting as many young people moving in. So we will have problems just only to get people working here as it is in the municipality or in the region right now. So we need more people in the age where they go to work, moving in here. But also, more people also means more services. And it is easier to grow a little bit than to decrease a little bit. Like making more things with less money, that's more difficult than the opposite. So it's actually many good things coming out of being a little bit more. But we will need it for the industries, we will need it for the municipalities to have people working here. We will need it to make sure that the services are as good as today, that you can find a restaurant or a theater or a hockey game. Then you need people living here. That's the way to develop a city, actually.
Carina, I think you are so generous with your insights, and I think it's so relevant to the work that all of us are doing. And if you need any more proof of the relevance of Luleå's work, of course, Nordregio would not have their Nordics Turning Green conference in Luleå if it were not for your work. A big applause.
Thank you.